Yo, what's up? How are you? How you doing? My name's Anthony, and we're back with another episode of Mitigating Madness. So welcome to Mi Casa. Mi Casa. Why am I saying like that? Mi Casa. This is Mitigating Madness. For today, I've got a bit of a doozy of a topic for you. All right? I've got a couple videos to go along with it that I've found scouring the internet. There's some weird implications in this one. But before we get to that, if you could do me a favor and, show some love to the page. Hit that subscribe button, share it on the socials, hit that like button, or fuck it. Hit the dislike button if you think that I'm not doing a great job. But if I'm not, I'm aware, I'm learning. This is a one-man operation, so give me some grace, all right? If you do have some pointers, though, I'm always happy to learn, so hit it down there in the comments section. If you have a story of your own, if you've had encounters with the weird, with the unexplainable, by all means, share them down below. I'm a sucker for this sort of thing. There's actually a couple of stories that I do want to check out in regards to calls that I've heard and things like that. I'm a big Art Bell fan. Coast to coast, ghost to ghost. If you know, you know. So yeah. There's gonna be plenty of that in the future. And shit, I'd like to actually be able to meet folks or speak with folks or interact with folks that have gone through these high strangeness experiences, because I've gone through a few myself. If you've seen some of my earlier videos, then you'll know. And then yeah, I've got plenty more that I'd like to share eventually, but we'll get there. While we make our way there, bear with me. Enjoy in this with me as I'm enjoying the process of growing and progressing in this. All right. Perfection isn't the goal with any of these posts. The goal is just plain simple progress for myself. Some of you, maybe like 3 of you, 2 of you, I don't know, some of you will know that, I used to work in a little bit of film and everything, so I have an idea of how to set this stuff up. But I'm also working from step 0 again, so this is about as raw as it gets. So, what are we talking about today? Floating structures, portals even. And when I say floating structures, I mean in the air, in the sky. Now, I know there's been a couple of videos going around of like figures in the clouds and everything, walking around in the clouds. While some of them, the original videos from like 10 years ago, maybe even longer, I do believe have some merit to them. I haven't been able to find them just yet, though. It's been a while since I've seen them, and I've been a sleuth for all this sort of thing, but this is still a new venture, so I haven't been accustomed to saving all of these videos and everything. But there's a lot of AI ones going around. While I suppose they get the job done in terms of getting the concept across, it's just not as fun, It's just kind of a bummer because a lot of people will take those as the real deal and will use that as reasoning to just dismiss everything, which I ain't about. So, floating structures. Who is behind this phenomenon? I'm a believer of the mind state that not just one thing can be true, right? I don't think you have to be a believer in that. For me, it's just fact. So part of me does think, yeah, maybe sometimes it's our government trying out maybe old Tesla tech or reverse engineering the UAPs, UFOs, and all that fun shit. They're UFOs, come on. It could be that. Or it could be a natural phenomenon like just a rainstorm is, a hurricane, And it just so happens to be on an ultra-dimensional level where portals open up and in specific spots. Maybe the point in which it is existing in the universe is just meeting up at the right frequency, and you're getting an exit point or just a window. In particular, there's this book, Hunt for the Skinwalker, by Colin Kelleher and George Knapp. I've only skimmed through it. I'm actually working on getting the book myself so I can read through it officially. There is one story in regards to Skinwalker Ranch, which at the time was known, I think, as the Sherman Ranch, where the residents of the land before Bigelow, just before Bigelow. Well, they were in the process of briefing Mr. Bigelow, and they mentioned plenty of stories that were really, really out there, sure. But the ones in particular that caught my attention were where the husband and wife of the ranch, of the original owners, at the time at least, were talking about how they would occasionally see what some could say is like interdimensional TV, where they would look up and there was a portal a couple hundred feet in the air, and it would seem to be just a flat way view where, let's say it's nighttime and they're seeing what looks like a window into a world, into another sky, nothing crazy, but it's daytime. And occasionally they would see objects coming in and out, and these portals could appear sometimes ground level, where they would encounter beings or entities, or they would not record but witness through different spectrums of light what would seem like humanoid shapes coming through these portals. So that got me thinking, maybe not all of it is a natural occurrence. Maybe it is, or maybe it's being manipulated by one side or the other. While that in of itself is amazing, what if it's just an ultra-dimensional being on a good day visiting, but on most days it's equivalent of a shadow? Because think of it this way: when you're walking by, when light hits you, do you consider at all, and you be honest with me, do you consider at all where your shadow touches, what your shadow encompasses, what it interacts with? Because your shadow is existing in the two-dimensional plane. So anything that it touches, that whatever's on that realm, whatever's existing in the two-dimensional plane, is not seeing necessarily you or I or anyone else that's producing the shadow. They can only experience the shadow itself, and to them, it's not an all-encompassing form that ultimately forms out a human body, a tree, whatever it may be from. To them, it's just a flat black line, right? So maybe the same thing is happening, but on a three-dimensional side, where these beings, and in particular, there's a video that I'll post in just a little moment, where these beings, their shadow or their equivalent of a shadow is essentially a three-dimensional object, a three-dimensional appearance on our plane. Actually, let me pull it up. So it's this video of a church service going on, and they are calling it a guardian angel that passes by. But if you look, just give it a couple seconds. If you look, there's going to be a glowing entity right there. So for me, I saw that and I thought to myself, could that possibly be a, for lack of a better term, a shadow of an ultra-dimensional being? Maybe it's not paying attention to us even at all. Maybe that being of light, that what looks like a ghost, let's say a spirit, an angel, whatever you want to call it, maybe that's just as insignificant of a thing to that being, that entity, as a shadow is to us in our existence, you know? And it's not even caring, like, oh no, I guess they saw me or whatever. It's like when an ant sees you, and when an ant sees your shadow, right? You're not really thinking about it. You're just like, right, there's a bunch of ants. Maybe that's all that's happening on that side. I say all that to talk about really floating structures, because again, to get back to the point, the Sherman family starts describing that they're seeing what essentially looks like golden or luminescent orange, beautifully orange and reddish golden buildings, structures, literally floating in the sky, looking like they're maybe phasing in or out, sometimes going in and out of these portals, sometimes just existing there. But what they found interesting, aside from the fact that there's floating buildings, was the fact that you could come around and it's like no one else could really see it. They would maybe see a disturbance, like a portal or something, but they couldn't see a structure. That's why I say it was like they were watching TV. It was like in a two-dimensional plane where they could see it if their viewpoint was from their home, their porch, their ranch. But the moment you leave, you drive around it, You don't see it. If anything, you see either what looks like a sliver, or what he describes as an orange misty cloud type of formation. So when I heard that, it reminded me of this old video I saw from out in China. This is maybe a decade ago, and again, I was young. I was too young to really even tackle anything seriously. But there's this old video of what looks like a city just floating in the clouds, like the tops of skyscrapers and everything. However, this one looks pretty human. That one in particular, I think falls under what some people would call a full-on, like, total
type of superior mirage called a fata morgana. The air temperature near the surface is actually cooler than the air above. It can make objects appear like they are stacked on top of each other, or in this case, like a city floating in the clouds. The same phenomenon happens when you're driving in your car on a hot day and you see what appears to be water or something liquid on the road in the distance. Or you've heard of people walking through the desert and they see water in the distance, and then once you get closer, it disappears. Light waves travel through the atmosphere from the sun straight to your eye, but they actually travel through the atmosphere at different speeds. A mirage occurs when the temperature on the ground is hotter than the air above. When light travels through the cooler air into that warmer air near the ground,
and these have been reported all throughout history. So while I'm sure that does, that does explain away probably more than a few, I don't think it's the answer for everything. In particular, like, I know of Fata Morgana, I think that's the same explanation for, like, some of the reports of the Watchers out in Northern California. But I've seen videos of that, and it looks very different to what some people describe as the Watchers. These things are moving independently of weather conditions. So, again, I think some can be explained, some can't. The video from China, I do believe, probably falls more in line with that. However, then we have videos like this. Let me play this, and it seems to be a floating building that is being witnessed by more than just one person, several people of this district, of this town, although I'm not too sure where it could be. Let's see. Yeah, see, where I see how people could clearly say, oh no, it's AI these days and everything, I don't feel that with this one. And maybe it could be, and maybe I'm just completely wrong and I'll just make a fool of myself. But so what? So what? I'm enjoying myself. But this video, in particular, really resonated with me, and this is what really reminded me of that story that I had heard from Hunt for the Skinwalker. To me, that might just be a shadow. The equivalent of a shadow, maybe. But a shadow nonetheless. And it could be something so insignificant, but to us, being in this plane, it is everything. We might not even be able to grasp the greater concept of what is going on there, beyond just the idea of, like, yeah, what we're seeing is a shadow, and we're taking that as fact. We're taking that as, no, not as fact. We're taking that as a solid object. To that structure, maybe it's a living structure, who knows, right? It probably looks at us, reacting to its shadow, the way we would look at ants, which is to say that it's probably observing, if even paying attention to us at all, it observes us with a great indifference at best. It might not even be concerned that we're looking at it too much, although, the stuff at Skinwalker Ranch seems to indicate that that occurrence maybe is a consciousness in of itself, and it seems to be dodgy. It doesn't want to be recorded. It doesn't want to be seen, but it doesn't want to be recorded. However, I want to play this next one because it's going to show a few more examples than this video in particular. But let's see. And this one is a bit of a blend.
Oh my God! Recently, sky observers from around the
Check
world
that one for sure.
uploading videos in the footage where there was once only blue sky and white clouds.
Yeah, so right there immediately, the first one, it's AI, I'm pretty sure. But the last two, The black cloud that looks, to me at least, looks like a little bit maybe of a portal of some sort, because it's really flat compared to everything around it. Then you have that orange misty cloud in the last video. I think it exemplifies the stories that have been reported.
Clouds. Clear images of cities suddenly appear.
See, that one is definitely mirage.
Streets, lights, even moving silhouettes like reflections from another world hanging above our skies. Scientists attempt to explain it, some suggesting it's light refraction similar to a mirage. But the problem is, these cities didn't appear over deserts or oceans, but over places like New York, Beijing, and Paris, lasting for tens of minutes with details precise enough to almost make out building outlines even more astonishing. Some researchers propose this might be a brief leap from a parallel dimension, a momentary overlap between our reality and another world, allowing us to glimpse another civilization through the sky.
I mean, exactly that. So, who is doing this? And do they even have an option in doing it? You know, maybe, like I said, maybe it's just like a shadow, it's something as simple as that. But if not who, then what? I believe that question is stated from the perspective of a human being expecting another humanoid type of intelligence, right? Another physical intelligence at the very least. Because what's to say that physicality is even needed in that dimension? I do have a theory that that's what like the Fae folk interact with. There's some sort of middle ground. That, you know, the spirit realm is divided glimpses. Our ideas, all these different ideas of what heaven, hell, spiritual realms, Fae realms, all this stuff is like divided glimpses of perhaps this greater dimension where there just is more access because they could see more. They're higher up on that peak, right? So if physicality isn't needed there, but consciousness is a thing, and their shadow seems to be showing up as UAP, as technology or structure based, or like there seems to be some sort of intelligent design to it. Maybe it's not showing its own creations in terms of its own realm of inhabitants. Maybe it's communicating with us by showing us a reflection of what it thinks we would more likely interact with and pursue. Maybe that's all that's going on. It's just like, hey, look, I found something. Like when you're trying to talk with your cat. You know, mine are driving me nuts right now, and I love them to death. But I realize that I don't know how to properly communicate with them. And then I find myself like doing little blinks and everything at them, like maybe we're understanding each other a little bit. So maybe that's all that's happening right there. It's just a passerby of a greater dimension, and it may not be even a god entity or anything like that. It's just Steve from the fourth dimension, the fifth dimension, sixth, seventh, whatever, right? Because who's to say that those entities then, that intelligence then in the fourth, if it doesn't have access to the fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth, whatever, as the dimensions keep going, right? Maybe it's just as confused by supernatural occurrences on its world, on its end, by the fifth dimension, by the sixth, by whatever, right? Maybe. Or at least that's what I like to think, because it's fun. I understand, this video actually kind of said it pretty well. I understand when people want to debunk it and say, oh no, it's just a mirage, it's just this, that, and the third. Again, when we're over an area that provides the necessary environment for those sort of illusions or mirages to appear, to form, you know, I'm more willing to buy it. But when you have places that are not really providing that sort of environment for that sort of phenomenon to occur naturally like that, I wonder, I do wonder if there is something else going on there. But I guess all we can really go off of right now, I mean, we're lucky that we're in an age where technology is where it is, and it continues to get better, because maybe we'll be able to study this in a way that we haven't in the past. The question remains, what is going on? However, then you have not just in the United States, but I mean all throughout Europe, I think in Russia as well, you have this same event taking place. So at a certain point, it's got to be something, I would argue, of a natural occurrence. But natural doesn't mean known. And if it's not known, then we like to say it's supernatural. It's paranormal. I'm of the belief that it's all science at the end of the day. I think it's all explainable. We just don't have the tools, or maybe even like the organic tools, to discern all of it. But we're a curious species, so I think we will eventually find our way to openly studying this sort of thing, openly accepting it as if nothing else, a natural occurrence that deserves observation and study, that deserves practical implications of scientific method. But I think the scientific method as well has to open up to the idea of accepting, at least at the very minimum, the idea of accepting the ethereal. All that fun, wooey shit, I think, does have a place in science. It's just science has to work its way up to understanding that and accepting that. And when it does, I think it'll be something amazing, because we'll really get to study what this sort of thing is, and shit, it might open up the path to interdimensional travel someday even. Or it might just give everybody a headache and make everyone want to quit school. So we don't know. I don't know. I'm just over here theorizing because it's a lovely Sunday. And yeah, I love thinking about this. I prefer to think about this over stress and anxiety and will the world end or will it not, and all that fun shit. So yeah, with that being said, did I answer a single question? No, not in the slightest. However, I think I provided some nuggets of ideas, and eventually I'll figure out a way to actually communicate my jumbled mind a little bit better. But it's a work in progress. It's progress, not perfection. And because of that, I think I'll be fine with leaving it at this. Eventually, I do want to do a deeper dive on this subject, on a lot of subjects actually. But baby steps. I'll work my way up to that. For the time being, I'm figuring out my flow. I'm figuring out how I want to run this little shindig, and enjoying the process of growth. In any case, I thank you for joining me and listening to me ramble. If you have any ideas that you think might be of interest, for sure, put them down below. And while you're at it, hit that like button. While you're at it, share it. While you're at it, subscribe. It's gonna be a weird trip, but that doesn't mean it's a bad trip, because I'll be there with you if you're there with me. Thank you again for watching, for being here. Every little bit helps. I don't know what the ultimate goal with this is, other than just finding joy in living and breathing again. So whether this grows or not, I'll definitely keep doing it, and I'll definitely keep sharpening the really dull blade that is my talent in front of a camera. Again, I mentioned earlier, I've worked a little bit in film, I guess, industry, but everything was behind the scenes. I prefer behind the scenes. I've never really been a fan of being in front of the camera, but this is a topic that I enjoy, so I figure, what the hell? Set this thing up, record, and let's see what happens. I'll leave you with that, and I'll see you next week.